Welcome back to the Org Unity Podcast, Org Unity Media Podcast. I'm Scotty, your host, and today we're going to be talking about different self-development tools that I have used over time to help me with my self-developmental journey. So yeah, the first self-development tool was using Google. Google is going to be your best friend because Google is used by almost everyone. That's the main browser operating program that everyone uses around the world, as well as some other ones, but it's Google, right? Anything that you want to learn, and YouTube is also owned by Google. So anything that you want to learn about yourself, about self-development techniques, self-development tests, personality testing, you can find on Google. If you just type in what you are naturally interested in, Google is going to pop it up. So I went down that route. I started to look at, what am I going to do next? And so during that time period, I started to go into the New Age spirituality movement, and I started to find out information that if you can use your mind in a certain way, you can control your reality. And control, for the hard science guys, when I say control, let's not get too hard up on these words. It's more of understanding that if I can change my outlook on life, if I can not be reactive with my emotions, if I can let go of preconceived notions and let go of material wants and desires, I can adjust how I feel about life and how I work with life to accomplishing my goals, and how I can not be at effect by the things that are in my surroundings. And of course, it's going to take a lot of time. It's not like it's a flip of the light switch. I mean, it flips the light switch in a way that, it's a new idea, a new concept, a new program that's being uploaded into your mind, to your conscious awareness of going okay, I can use these things, my body, my emotions, my mind, as tools within me, and I can develop those tools to do better in my environment and to have better relationships. And that was like the first light bulb moment. But it wasn't exactly overnight success where I became like a self-development expert. No, it just opened my mind up. And that's why it's good to go into understanding more about your spirituality and going and finding things that resonate with you online on Google. But then I'll tell you how it really didn't help me right away, is because then, since I started marijuana, I was so new and open to this experience that I started to use this as a way to understand myself more. And I find, and I've read and I've seen, observed, that people will use these plant substances and twist it in a way like this is the only way to experience reality. And I think that you can be sorely mistaken. If you overuse it, you're going to be addicted to it, and it's going to be a crutch. It's not going to help you. Now, if you use it for medication, if you use it for an actual illness and in your anxiety, and it helps, then I'm not talking about you guys on that. But I'm talking about for the normal person, for like myself, that don't need to use it to help my immune system or help out a pain or anything. Even though it did help out my knee surgery, I don't need it. I don't need it to feel better. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to feel better in my physiology or in my mind. I don't need it. But I was using it as a tool to develop my sense of self more, to understand myself more. And eventually that led me to, it opened me to, okay. Before then, I was strictly against drugs. That's the reason why I was going to law enforcement, correct? I mean, there's a reason why I was going to law enforcement, because I was totally against drugs. My dad was a former police officer. My mom has kind of a rocky history, and since I lived with her as a child, that affected me. So I was like, you know what? I want to prevent that from happening with other kids, especially kids that are from immigrant mothers and immigrant families, to prevent that from happening. That's the reason, one of the few reasons why I wanted to be a police officer, to make a difference in that arena. So I was against drugs, very much against it, black and white, but then my worldview got opened up. And as that worldview got opened up, as I went through the online resources, understanding a little bit more about my spirituality, understanding the law of attraction, that all is mind, the principles of gender, cause and effect, polarity, all those things, I got into the rabbit hole of New Age spirituality where I'm like, all right, I started to experiment with other drugs, other plant substances, which would be MDMA, Molly, and LSD, acid, and mushrooms and things like that. Can you get benefits off of psychedelics? Yes, there are psychedelic therapy studies that are being conducted by authentic sciences through authentic publications, but they are wary of publishing too much or praising the benefits of these psychedelic medications is because of like somebody like Timothy Leary back in the 60s and 70s who says that tune in and tune out, or I forgot the quote, but basically he says to disengage from society and that society is all a bunch of social constructs, which it is, but the thing is to have society, you gotta have social constructs to maintain the order of society. So it was very much of a free love, free expression, but too much in the order of chaos and not enough in the middle plane of, you have a little bit of chaos, creativity to create more order. This is the yin-yang self-actualizing principle is reconciliation of the differences to have being. But Timothy Leary and through the hippies back in the day was going overboard, not all of them, but there's a sect that was going way overboard in that movement. So when you go way overboard in that movement, well, then issues happen. And so that's where I had my own issues, is then I started to experiment with these substances that it made me because it's through neural pathways, right? Through changing my hormonals, through synaptic responses, through releasing overabundance of serotonin and dopamine, that I started to experience reality in different ways. And it started to open my mind up, seeing the interconnections that we all have through our environment, and that our environment, we're not separated from our environment. We do act as separate beings from our environment, but when it comes down to when you break our bodies down all the way down to the quark level and even down to the substrate of the universe and our reality, we are all just energy, and our energy is constituted, recombined and reconfigured in different ways, where it's me, Scott, it's you, whoever your name is, nice to meet you, and to my phone right here, to this coffee cup that I have right in front of me. Everything is energy in different states of vibrations and different frequencies, and how the matter is patterned and how it reacts with the environment. So it was great. The floodgates were open. Now at that point, I couldn't stop but look for more information about New Age spirituality. I couldn't stop but look for more information about self-developmental techniques and tools. Looked more information about these different substances, how they were made, when I mean made, it's more of what is the chemical structure of mushrooms, like what is the active ingredient? Psilocybin would be the active ingredient. What does LSD stand for? God, I think I forgot about that. But anyways, from the lysergic root from off of this grain, where it's basically rotted grain and a bacteria grows on the grain stem, and that's where they extract it to make LSD and stuff like that. So I started to understand like DMT and all these things. I've never tried DMT. It sounds kind of interesting, to be honest. But then with me going down that route, and it opened my mind up, and then I started to go down the rabbit hole of YouTube and going to conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and learning more about how societies formed and like secret societies. Well, you see, it started taking me down to this like darker path of conspiratorial thinking, as well as thinking, oh, there's this spiritual happening between light forces and dark forces, which would get into religious connotations. And is there some elements of that in society today? Yeah, our own human nature. Like that's literally what it is. You and I both have light and dark forces inside of us. We can allow the dark forces to take over completely, and that could be bad. And we could even allow the light forces take over completely, and that would be bad too. So you would have to have a balance of the two, and knowing the duality makes the singularity. Because without the duality, then it becomes like a scale too weighed out. Can you see both my hands here? Because I can't see it in the screen. It becomes either too lopsided in one direction or too lopsided in the other direction. You need to have that balance of duality to make the singularity. So I started using substances and started to trying to recapture that moment of that new stage of consciousness of me finding. That was the very first time where I had a feeling that God existed. This is my personal belief. If it doesn't, you don't believe in it, fine, whatever, right? But this is just from my own perspective. It made me go like, oh, like instead of seeing my life as totally that there is a God, that God made this universe, and these are the different ways that we can perceive God in these different things, and God is personal as well as impersonal. God can talk to you directly by the way you conduct yourself, or God can be very impartial. So it was like this weird like paradox thinking that was happening in my mind, and that you'll see as I start to explain more to create more content, is that instead of being just an agnostic where I was still questioning if there is a God or not, it got to me a point where like, oh my God, there is an underlying interconnected energy that binds us all, as well as binds all of our consciousness together to experience our reality around us and the universe, and that we are the universal expression in our human bodies. I think I found God, or technically God found me. And so that got me into very deep spirituality into my core, because for me, that drives me to do things that I do and gave me my sense of being. Now, if you call God, there's many different ways you can call God, right? And I'm going to explain how I call God, which will, for you hard science guys, for you scientific guys, you guys are not going to like it. For you guys that are Christians or Muslims or Jewish, whatever, you're not going to like it. For you Buddhists, you're probably not going to like it. But this is just my own belief, right? Is that God exists outside of me as well as inside of me, as well as in all the things, and God comes in many different forms and many different names. Whatever you wish to label that name, God can be either God, Source, Spirit, Dios, could be Logos, could be the Christian God, could be the Muslim God, could be to be the no thing, to be the Tao Te Ching. Didn't mean to rhyme there. Could be the energy of the universe from the singularity. So see, that's how for me is like I found the center point of existence. And that to me is God, is that whatever you wish to label it, all the derivative and division of ideas in religion, all the derivative and divisions of matter, of energy into matter, into the way that we see and perceive matter. To me, that is all God. Consciousness, how we perceive our realities, from animal consciousness to human consciousness to even higher being consciousness to the environmental consciousness and how the environment affects our genetics and things like that. To me, that's all part of God. And so that's where I say, like I said, for some of you hard science guys, you might be turned off by that, but trust me, I turn off a lot of Christians and stuff, like people in the religious arena too. And it's your belief. And that's why I emphasize spirituality is your own belief. If you believe that science is that, and that gives you life and that gives you meaning in life, that is your spirituality. Or if rock climbing happens to be that thing that you do, that you live for, that is your spirituality. That's the sense of being, like that's part of you. And whatever that holds holds all the different forms of our reality together and binds it, and that where in these different forms has an effect on this medium called our universe, that is the thing that is spiritual. That is the spiritual glue and connection that keeps everything intact, where through our own unity, through the unity of all things becoming intact, there stems diversity. Just as a way as a tree that takes center root in the ground, where in the ground what you don't see are a bunch of roots that are spread down from the core idea of a seed. And then from the top of the roots, in the light, you see the trees and the leaves and all the different functions and how it interacts with the environment. So that's what I mean. That gave me that like clear connection that everything is connected. Everything has its own subjective experience. Everything has its objective data when it's measured. Everything is together. So for me, I started going down a darker path there. How many minutes I'm at? God, I'm talking quite a bit. So I started to using those substances where it opened my mind and it made me go. And when I say it made me, I made myself too. You know, like it helped influence me to go down and look through Google and look for all sources of information that pertains to how things are connected. It led me to cosmology. It led me to particle physics. It led me to psychology. It led me to sociology. It led me to human history. It led me to all these different pathways, right? And this is just through Google. Like I'm Google searching, I'm on Wikipedia searching stuff. I'm like looking through different authors writing different things. Like people have different perspectives on spirituality, like angelnumbers.com, or is it Sacred Scribes? Well, if you type in angel numbers 111 or angel numbers 739 or whatever angel number that you type in, right, it will pop up and I think it's sacredscribes.net. Well, anyway, everyone has their own perspective on New Age spirituality. You're going to see so many, like, you know, there's so many different theories in science on like the multiverse theory or the Big Bang theory or the Big Bounce theory, the Big Crunch. You know, there's just so many people have so many different perspectives and they break it down. And I was thirsty for all that kind of knowledge, from the New Age spirituality to Buddhism to Christianity. I was going into that. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm influenced by T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen, right? But I'm also influenced by Ralph Smart and Your Universe. Like I was just looking for every pieces of information I could. And through that, this is the reason why I say it's a dark side of using substances, like from plant medicines to chemical substances like MDMA, which technically MDMA comes from the sarsaparilla tree, which happens to be a psychedelic hallucinogenic active ingredient, you know, that helps boost serotonin levels. So that's why you feel so connected when you're on Molly and ecstasy and those kind of drugs. So the thing is, when you're doing those kind of drugs, it could lead you down a dark path. You could use them as tools, but if you don't, but through those tools, it's like using a sword, right? Or using a gun. Those tools can be very dangerous if not used in the right way. You can use it to practice a martial art, shoot on the range, to hunt or whatever, but those tools can be turned on you. Those tools can accidentally explode in your face, or those tools can accidentally cut you if you don't wield it the right way, you know, or a knife. If you don't wield the tool the right way, or you're using like a drill and you drill in the wrong place or hammer your hand. These tools, these plant medicines, these chemical drug tools, they are just tools, but they straddle the fine line of getting you addicted to stuff. And if you don't know how to use these tools, or if you're not prescribed, or if you're not guided into understanding how to use these tools and how it affects your neurological pathways and how you can become addicted. Well, for me, I started to rely on too much because I was also trying to find and relive that high of, wow, I found the connection towards the universe, towards God, to spirit, to the energy. And I was attempting to reclaim that feeling. And yes, it opened my mind up to all these things, but it also opened my mind up to all sorts of craziness too, because, well, I was abusing it. So of course it's going to affect my psychology. And through affecting my psychology, I remember one day I just had a couple bad trips, and one day it finally was just like, bro, like, why are you still back in here? You know, it was like my future self, my higher self, my sense of self, God, energy, spirit, the plant, whatever. However you want to perceive what my words are coming out, it was basically saying, bro, you can keep coming back here, but you're going to go crazy. And like, here, let me show you your life a little bit. And so I saw my life in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? I am going back into this. I'm becoming addicted. I'm attempting to escape my reality. I'm not investing. I'm growing myself, but now I'm growing in the wrong ways. Now, instead of establishing good roots, I'm growing rotted roots. And this could be a very bad thing for myself. And so in that time period, I was like, I got to stop. Because one of the messages I got was, get back into your body, get back into your natural gifts. And I told you before that one of my natural gifts was knowing how to manipulate my body. Like I'm gifted genetically that my body responds very well to exercise and responds well to diets. So I started getting back into my body. Did I do substances from once? Yeah, I did. I'm not gonna lie, I did. But it was a lot less, right? It was more timed out. I started focusing on my education, you know. I went back to school because during that time period I also dropped out of community college. Well, actually I went back to community college, but then I started to take more classes when I started to get myself back together even more. I lost a lot of that after surgery weight. I got myself really buff, you know, and during this time period, like, I started to read more books. You know, I started to read more about part of physical. Brian Greene's, oh my God, this book's escaping my name. The Beautiful Universe. I don't know. I'll put down the link below as affiliate link, by the way. Beautiful Universe. Brian Greene's. Oh my God, I would look on my phone right now, but my phone's using it to record. Brian Greene's Elegant Universe. The Elegant Universe. I started to read about that. I started to buy. I bought Einstein's General Relativity, Special Relativity, and I read that book. I started to read on his. I didn't understand the math, so I started to go into the arena of looking for more books, and I feel like I should stop it here. So, man, that took a ton of a long workaround towards how I wanted to get to the next thing, which was books. But yeah, so in this episode, I guess we'll just wrap it up with that the light and dark path of taking substances, hallucinogenic substances, and plant medicine as well as chemical medicines, coming out from not understanding myself to understanding my own spiritual power, to seeing the underlying spiritual connection towards myself and the universe, towards understanding that I have a set of tools that I can develop and use within myself, as well as use external tools outside of myself to manipulate my reality. And to understand that that you can go on Google and look for whatever information that you want to and begin studying that information. And it's very important to have both sides of the information. And so I'm going to leave it off at that, because I really was only going to make this video for self-development tools and go list down the process, but I went down the whole spiel about me and my my eye-opening substances, as well as becoming slightly addicted to those substances and then kicking the habit and using Google as a resource. And so I'm just going to leave it off at that. Use Google as a resource. Start to look at things that you're interested in. Reflect on you. Don't be controlled so much by your work, by your peers, by your family, and make your own decisions. Find out what really resonates with you. First piece of information, what are you interested in? Ask yourself that question. What are you interested in? The moment you can find what you're interested in, you can start looking for that. Because don't get into that habit of, I got so many other questions. Like, well, start with one freaking question, man. Just start, or woman, or you, or who. Just start with one question. Like, what are you interested in? And once you figure out what you're interested in, then start looking that up on Google, on YouTube, searching for it, reading up about it, listening to it, watching it. Just start. Just like how I started with the whole self-development thing, where now I have an understanding in New Age spirituality, in different religions. Not an expert, but I have an understanding in the different sciences: psychology, human behavior, human motivation, particle physics, AI, machine learning. Certain fields I'm very good at, and other fields that I'm just kind of more of a layman trying to attempt understanding things. Sociology. And then here I am doing YouTube, knowing stuff, how to do brand strategy, media marketing, content strategy, content marketing, blah, 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 blah. Like, it all started with, how do I get to understand myself? Like, who am I? Once you understand, like, who am I and what's the first thing I want to learn? And when you find out what's the first thing you want to learn, and usually that will be, what am I interested in? Yeah, just what am I interested in? What can I see that can take me as a career path and that can makes me feel excited for each moment that I'm alive. And so that concludes the Org Unity Media Podcast, AUM Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you made it this far, congratulations. Thank you. Much love and many blessings. I'm Scotty, Org Unity Media of Org Unity. Have a blessed and awesome day. Peace.